Newt Gingrich.
Asked during the debate to name the security threats that worry him, Newt Gingrich lays out 3 scenarios: a weapon of mass destruction in an American city, a cyber attack, and something many have never heard of.
Electromagnetic pulse attack, which would literally destroy the country's capacity to function.
An electromagnetic pulse attack, or EMP. It's been the stuff of fiction on the Fox show 24.
It's an EMP!
But it's also a real threat, experts say, and it likely wouldn't look like that. An EMP attack, they say, is an intense burst of electromagnetic radiation. It can be triggered by detonating a nuclear weapon at high altitude, a weapon that could be launched by a rogue nation or a terrorist group with access to it. Detonated low to the ground, atomic weapons have a devastating physical shock. But detonated miles up in the atmosphere, experts say, the main impact is electrical, energy that doesn't kill people but spreads like lightning, striking any electrical grid or circuitry, feeding into them, burning them out. Whole cities could go dark. Security analyst James Carafano has written about EMP attacks.
In one single event, what could be disabled?
If you had a large-scale EMP event in the United States, everything would be disabled, because even things that weren't knocked out, let's say your car, which might be okay, but the electrical grid's going to be gone. There's going to be no way to do traffic lights. There's going to be no way to land ships. There's no way to get fuel to the gas stations to refuel your car. And if you got them there, the gas pumps wouldn't work.
Think of this fictional attack in the movie Ocean's 11. We demonstrated electromagnetic interference on a much smaller, less threatening scale at the University of Maryland, showing how magnetic fields from some electronic devices often interfere with other devices.
You hear this ringing behind me? We're showing you what electromagnetic interference is. Say this television is a car. The car's function is rolling along normally. Here's a cell phone ringing. When it gets close to that, you can see how the audio of the television signal changes. You can hear the interference. That's essentially it's interfering with the car's function.
But with a large-scale EMP attack, experts say, computers would fail, telecommunications cut off, bank accounts inaccessible. They say that's because the transformers that power many electrical grids take a long time to manufacture and transport. And with transportation knocked out by the attack, that prolongs the isolation. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
Hello everyone, my name is Jose Prado with Man-Made Survival. Thanks so much for coming back to the channel and watching this video. I really hope you share today's video, because this video is going to be one of the most important videos that I have done in a while, okay? And I have done over 100 videos, and I would put this one number 1 on the priority for you to learn from and for you to watch, because the information that I'm going to give today is going to be extremely important, okay? And we're going to have to deal with reality on this one, because even though reality is not something pleasant, and a lot of times it's very important for you to just come with terms with it, learn from it, and we can move on and make a better future. All right, so if I haven't introduced myself in this video, my name is Jose Prado with Man-Made Survival. Please share the video. Please subscribe to the channel so you can get more of our videos and get updates. Click the little bell so you can get notified when we make a new video and bring you more information that's up to date and how you can survive a scenario like that is actually happening. It wouldn't be like a potential thing. It would be something that's actually unfolding, and the things that you need to do in order for you to prepare. So it's proactive. It's not a future, maybe this could happen type thing, as we've seen in the past. This is actually going on now, which that's what I believe makes my channel special, or at least it makes it different from other channels that are out there. But anyways, please share the video, click on the links, subscribe and share with your friends and family. But anyways, the reason that this video today is going to be really important is because we talk about EMP, all right, and the reality of EMP. And I'm going to present it in a way that I haven't presented it before. And for the videos that I've seen on EMP, it's not really the way that I'm going to be dealing with it today. It's more like a infographic, or information on what happens during an EMP. What I want to focus on is the reality that would happen following an EMP, because that's what's the most important thing. Okay, and I'm gonna be talking about the countries that have that in their doctrine. All right, and it's the usual suspects as always. Okay, but new things have developed this past week that kind of brings this back forward into focus, and there's things that we have to consider. All right, but before I get into the articles and the charts and all the things that I've put together to bring you this presentation, is that I want to remind you about the store that we have open, Madman Survival Store. You can go to madmansurvivalstore.com and you can check it out. You know, all the things that you're going to need there for an EMP, for a nuclear blast, or just regular everyday gear is going to be on there. You can be assured that when you make a purchase, that you're helping homeless people get the gear that they're going to need for the winter or just everyday living, and you're going to help us teach orphanages, or the kids in the orphanages, how to survive if for whatever reason there's an EMP one day, and the government has left them, the workers have left them because they have their own families to take care of, and the orphanage kids will become their own little tribe. All right, and I want to make sure that they know how to survive. But anyways, that would be how you would support that, and you would support this channel. Okay, so it's important. Please make a purchase through there and help us out that way. So anyways, we're gonna get into the EMP. All right, the first article that I have for you is very important. All right, I'm not gonna go into many articles. I'm only gonna read you 2 today. Okay, and I'm gonna show you a chart that I put together myself. And you can vet the information, you can look up the information, because it's important, especially in a topic like this, for you to know exactly what's going on. All right, and I'm gonna get into a lot of in a very detailed manner about the preparedness. So I encourage you to stay all the way to the end. I'm not sure how long this video is gonna be. I'm gonna try to keep it under an hour. So I encourage you to stay all the way to the end and get all the information. All right, because I worked really hard on this, and I really do believe that this is going to be a way for you to learn how to make a plan, what you need as gear, because there's going to be different factors that's going to help you survive. Okay, and you're going to see how many people are predicted to perish during this. Okay, so here's the first headline that I have for you. Death ray. China's secret space weapons could kill 90% of people on U.S. mainland in first strike EMP attack, report warns. This from The Sun. China has allegedly stolen U.S. technology to develop space-based weapons that can neutralize aircraft carriers groups and kill 90% of Americans on U.S. soil. The extraordinary claims are made in report warning Beijing has secretly developed a network of satellites, missiles, and electromagnetic pulse weapons that could immediately unleash a Pearl Harbor-style attack. The report by the EMP Task Force on Homeland and National Security, a coalition of industries, security, and government officials, lays bare a doomsday scenario of a preemptive attack. The task force claims an EMP will result in a meltdown in the economy and society, which could kill between 70 and 90% or 295 million people in the United States alone. All right, so that is very important for you to keep in mind, because I'm about to go into the chart that is going to show you how they could possibly have come up with the numbers, but also the very first people who are going to be very vulnerable to all of this. Okay, and of course, the people that are going to be very vulnerable to this is going to be the people who rely on medications, on surgeries, on the modern healthcare system. Because when an EMP blows up in the middle, or on the atmosphere over the United States, everything that's electronic is going to die. And since there's going to be such chaos, there's going to be no hospitals. And since there's going to be no distribution, there's going to be no pills distributed to the pharmacies. All right, people are going to ransack the pharmacies, and whatever they got their hands on is however long it's going to last them. All right, so I want to remind you, by the way, that all these numbers, or at least the numbers, the 295 million people that would die, that's only in 12 months. All right, that is a 1 year span. So from the very first initial detonation of an EMP, you know, to the anniversary of it, 12 months later, they predict that not 295 million people would die. All right, so 12 months for that very many deaths is just extraordinary. You know, it's something that we cannot really fathom completely. That's why it's important for us to come to terms with reality right now while it hasn't happened yet. For when it does, we are prepared mentally for it. All right, so the first chart that I have for you is this that I'm going to put on the screen. I got these numbers that you see in front of you from the CDC. Okay, and I want to go ahead and come back and say that the reason I'm using the CDC numbers is, for one, it's a government agency, right? And if we cannot trust the CDC, which of course a lot of people don't, then who the heck can we trust? All right, the whole reason we're in the pandemic and using the guidelines that we're doing now is because that's what the government uses. All right, what the CDC says is pretty much what the government does. You know, at least to this point it has. All right, so that's why I'm using CDC numbers. I'm gonna leave the link below this video so you can find the data that I found and the way that I looked at it. All right, so before I get into the numbers, I want to make sure you understand that the numbers that I use are the people who go into the emergency rooms or the people who get diagnosed. All right, and all of that has to do with medical intervention, because the people who went to the hospital, if they didn't get any kind of treatment or you know, surgery, whatever, depending on the cost of or you know, on the what happened to them, it's whether or not they're gonna be able to survive it. You know, if somebody got shot, if they were taken to the hospital, they did surgery, then they have chance to survival. If they didn't get any medical intervention, you know, of course, depending on where it hit, but we're talking about vitals, then of course they would more than likely die, right? So that's the whole idea of all of this. So there would be no supply chain, there would be no emergency rooms, and there would be, you know, no pharmaceuticals. So I want to stress that. So right now, the first numbers I'm going to give you is using modern medicine today, okay? And those are the number of deaths in 1 year, and some of the numbers are from 2017, and some of them are from 2018. Not really 2020, but, you know, those numbers are still, is the best data that we have right now. So leading cause of death in the United States, heart disease. With modern medicine and intervention, 647,457 people die annually. From cancer, 599,108. Accidents, unintentional injuries, you know, that would be like a car accident or, you know, falling off a ladder or whatever, 169,936. Stroke, 146,383. Diabetes, 83,564. Influenza and pneumonia, 55,672. Intentional self-harm, which would be suicide, 47,173. Asthma, 3,564. Homicide and assault, 19,510. The total deaths in 1 year out of all this would be about 1,772,367. All right, so that's why I want to make sure that with modern medicine, with medical interventions, with ER, hospitals, and everything, we still get those amounts of death. You know, 1 million people dying every year because of this. You know, it's very sad and very unfortunate, but it's reality. All right, so the next numbers that I'm going to be showing you here now in a few seconds are the numbers that they have for when people go to the ER, people who have been diagnosed, you know. And of course, the reason I put them on the list, I want to specify, I want you to understand, is because these people will not get any type of medical intervention. That would mean no pharmaceuticals, no, you know, therapy, whatever. All right, no surgeries, no transplants, no transfusions, nothing, no medical intervention whatsoever. All right, so the chances of them dying, of course, will be greater. All right, so, and again, these numbers are the ones that show in the CDC website. For heart disease, with a lack of modern medicine, would be 30.3 million people that would die. All right, so you can see the big difference between the two numbers. With modern medicine, 647,457 is out of those 30.3 million people. All right, those are the people who perished. The rest of them are the ones who had intervention by medicine, surgery, whatever. All right, that's how the rest of this chart breaks down. Cancer, 24.7 million people. Accidents, unintentional injuries, 29.4 million. Stroke, 7.8 million. Diabetes, 34.2 million. Influenza and pneumonia, 1.5 million. Intentional self-harm, suicide, 479,000. Asthma, 19.2 million. Homicide and assault, 1.7 million. Out of all of that put together, that brings the number to 149,279,000 people. Okay? And the number that I have right next to that 1.7 million for assault and homicide is the difference between what I have here that I added up against that 295 million that they estimate that would die. So that will leave 145,721,000 deaths that, I didn't account for. I'm sure that they use different methods that they would probably die, because of course there's other diseases out there like HIV, others, old people. I didn't put people over 65 years in here. I just put the leading causes of death. All right, so that will leave that 145,721,000 to kind of speculate what that would be. I would assume that would be from homicide and assault, because of course we're gonna have chaos and pandemonium all throughout the United States. People are gonna be fighting over resources. People are gonna be fighting over safety. People are gonna take advantage and rape women, rape children, kidnap people. There's gonna be a lot of evil out there that's gonna happen because of this. So the reason I gave you those numbers is because I want you to understand just how big and important the medical system that the United States has is. Because once that is wiped off, about 150 million people will die in a 12-month span. Okay, once the initial detonation of an EMP happened over the United States. That's what I want you to understand. The remaining 145 million people, I guess we would have to wait and see. Of course, that would be if that happened and nobody attacked the United States. Nobody sent a nuke. Nobody invaded. There was no other type of intervention, like no sending supplies in the United States. That would be no army involved. That would be the chaos within the United States. The 295 million people, that population would kill itself because we would be fighting over resources, because of course the supply chain no longer exists, and whatever you can grow on your own, that's what you're gonna feed yourself from and your family, and whatever you were able to stock up is what you're gonna be living off of. That is why it's important for you to have at least 2 years worth of food, which is what we're gonna get into here in a few minutes. Okay, the next article that I have for you that is gonna show you who would be responsible for it and what methods that we use, right? And the reason that I want to show you the next article is because important things have happened in the past few weeks. One of them is that China and Russia team up together to pretty much upgrade Iran's military. And of course they did electronic weapons, they did new airplanes. They just did pretty much a whole remodeling of the Iranian army. And of course, they could have given them an updated or more powerful EMP weapon that they would get Iran to use, because as far as the United States is concerned, China and Russia are very powerful enemies. Russia has the technological advances that surpass the United States in some areas, and China pretty much has the people that they would need. Okay, now what we boast about as Americans is our military might. And we have by far a lot more aircraft carriers than any country put together, right? If I'm not mistaken, the United States alone has about 12 aircraft carriers. You know, that would just blow anyone else out of the water. That would make that makes actually the United States Navy the best there is out there, right? Nobody can touch us on that aspect, that we have so many aircraft carriers. That's where all that money, all the printing that we've done has gone to, and, you know, of course, other areas as well. And EMP will render all those 12 completely useless. All right. So everything that we boast about with the Navy could be completely destroyed just with one EMP. And very sadly, those aircraft carriers depend heavily on computers and everything. They are not EMP safe at all. As a matter of fact, it's just a tin can floating in the middle of the ocean. If an EMP was to go off, it would just sit there, and they will lose communications with the country, you know, with the mainland, with other ships. All those people, you know, all those sailors on there, which average about 4,000 of them, would be sitting in the ocean all by themselves, and they would be left out there to die. You know, and what would happen? More than likely, there would be chaos within it, and it would just not survive at all. All right, so that's the problem with that. That's the risk. Okay, I want you to understand that. Now, here's the next headline that I have for you. All right, here it is. China surprise, years in planning, an EMP attack. This from The Hill. America looks fragile to dictators who would replace the U.S.-led world order with a new one dominated by themselves. China, for example, has been planning to defeat the U.S. with an electromagnetic pulse and cyber Pearl Harbor attack for a quarter century. As I warned the Senate Committee on Terrorism, Technology, and Homeland Security in 2005, Chinese military writings, such as the following excerpt, makes reference to U.S. vulnerability to EMP attacks. In their own words, a highly computerized open society like the United States is extremely vulnerable to electromagnetic attacks from all sides. This because the U.S. economy, from banks to telephone systems and from power plants to iron and steel works, rely entirely on computer networks. When a country grows increasingly powerful economically and technologically, it will become increasingly dependent on modern information systems. The United States is more vulnerable to attacks than any other country in the world. So it is very bad news, more than a year after President Trump issued an executive order on coordinated resilience against electromagnetic pulse, that the Department of Energy and the Department of Homeland Security have done nothing to prevent the national electric grid or other critical infrastructures that sustain the lives of 330 million Americans. All right, so China is suspect number one because we were able to infiltrate or whatever we did in order for us to be able to get the documents that shows that that's the way they think. That to them, an EMP is not a nuclear device. So even if we were to do a treaty that no nukes would be used, they don't consider an EMP a nuclear device, so they would be legally allowed to use it, which would send this country back to the 1700s. Okay, and a lot of people, including myself, we don't know how to live that way. I've experienced, you know, poverty to the point where I didn't have any electricity, and we will live off candlelight at night, you know. But to be completely off the grid, so many years later, now that I'm used to it, it would be something very difficult for me, even as a prepper, to really kind of like cope with it, right? That's why it's important for us to get prepared now, because the systems that we put in place now is going to be what determines how successful we are to surviving. Because if there's 331 million Americans and 295 of those will die, about 36 million Americans will be left in the country. So you have to make sure that you're one of those and your family members as well. That's why you must prepare today. So if something like that was to happen, you would be prepared to survive. However, in reality, right? If we were to get attacked with an EMP, you can bet that nuclear strike or an invasion of the United States would happen, because China, Russia, Iran, whoever it is who decides to attack the United States one day and are successful in doing so, and somehow they're able to defeat the military, whatever, using EMP weapons and whatnot. They would take the land for themselves. They would take the water. They would take the farmlands. They would take all the resources. And the remaining 36 million people, either A, they fight for their survival, which of course they would die for it, or they would have to go into slavery. There's still slavery nowadays. It's 2020. It's a very few handful of, if I haven't said that right, a few countries actually have slaves nowadays. Now, let's say that they don't, actually take us into slavery. They can put us, or the remaining people who are alive, into concentration camps. Okay? And if they want to take over all of the United States, all they would have to do is just kill the remaining 36 million people. I mean, the Chinese government in the past has been known for killing over 80 million people. That's history, right? So 36 million, in order for them to take the entire United States and rebuild it, I don't think they would have an issue with that. I mean, common sense would say that, at least. Or at least I would hope. So I hope you understand the gravity of all of this, okay? If we get an EMP, and the way you would know is that nothing works. Your computer don't work. There's no internet, no phone. Your car don't crank. All right. And if it's the middle of the day, the lights will suddenly go off, and you will have to walk home. You will have 3 days to get home before even more chaos unleashes. Okay. So what can you do to prepare? There's a few things that will pretty much. There's several factors that will decide your fate. Okay, the first one I want to say is going to be your spiritual health. God will ultimately decide your fate. However, you will draw strength and perseverance by how spiritual you are. Okay, and I want to touch down on that real quick. There's people that have found strength and a reason to live through spirituality. All right, you guys know that I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. He's my Lord and Savior. He died on the cross, and 3 days later he rose from the dead, and now he sits on the right side of the Father. Just real quick in a nutshell, that's what I believe. I'm a Christian. It has been documented in the past that because of religious or spiritual, whatever you want to use, beliefs, people have been able to actually survive certain situations, or being able to have the will. There we go. That's the word I was trying to think. The will to actually survive certain situations, because they want to see their family members. They cry out to God, and they ask for help and all those things. The next thing that is going to be important for your survival is this: mental health. Mental health. Come to grips with reality. Prepare your mind to accept the fact that your family members at any age will die from this, whether from an attack or lack of medicine. Some may even take their own life because of it. All right, I want to touch that real quick because it's very, very important. In order for you to be able to cope with what's going to happen, is that you understand it now, rather than understand it while it's going on. Because there's a lot of people out there, including my family, who depend on medicines, who depend on pharmaceuticals in order for them to continue living. There's people out there who have transplants, and in order for them to continue to survive, they need anti-rejection medicine. But once that is stopped, then the body's going to fight the new transplant, and that will eventually cause them to die. All right, there's people who have asthma, and just the simple the puffs. I escapes my mind right now. Just because they don't have that, they could go through an episode and not survive it. There's different things, and a lot of family members have those issues within the family. Okay, and within your group, you have to make sure that the people who are going to be in your alliance are healthy, and if they do have something, you have the alternative medicine to be able to, I guess, deal with that issue, and help them to be as effective as possible for the rest of the group, so they don't become a burden, and then there's hard feelings because you couldn't help them, through their family or whatever. Hard feelings from the family. All right, so that's why it's important. And then there's going to be people who are going to feel in despair. They're going to feel like there's no reason to live, and they might take their life. It might come to a surprise to you that could happen, or that one of your family members thinks that way. There's a lot of people who rely on the pharmaceuticals or on the prescriptions that shrinks give them, or even the actual fact of going out to the shrink and be able to talk to them and stuff that that will calm their mind. That's going to be taken away in that scenario. So you have to know exactly where your family is mentally, so you can continue on planning, and you can have redundancies if they don't have a good state of mind. All right, that's something you have to consider when you make your plan for such an event. The next thing that I want to that I have on my notes is that's gonna have the factor that's gonna decide your fate is how far away from people you are. Being remote will be a two-edged sword. The reason I say that is because you can be, it could be a very good thing that you're far away from anyone. You're in the middle of nowhere, nobody's gonna see you. People have to walk miles and miles and miles to even get anywhere near where you are. That could be a good thing when the rest of the country is going to hell in a handbasket, but it could be a bad thing if you're attacked, if you have an accident, if you're out there by yourself, if one of the family members is sick and you don't have the proper medicine or the proper herbs out there where you're going to be staying at, and they die from the lack of medicine. That's why I say it could be a two-edged sword. So you have to consider those two possibilities. The next thing is that you have to have equal and balanced level of preparedness, and that would include planning, food, water, medicine, tactical training, alliances, communications, gear or tools, wilderness survival training, transportation, and a bunker. All right, the reason I want to emphasize that again is because there's people who only focus on one aspect of it. All right, they say, all I need is guns, and that's it. Some people, all they do is stock up on food, and that's it. There's people who really don't really prepare at all. Just thinking about it. But you have to have a healthy balance on everything, because if you lack one of these, that could be your downfall. Because if you don't have enough food, you're gonna have to venture out, and you could come across a gang and then you end up dying, or maybe you don't have enough water and you have to venture out and your whole family and group has to move to a new location. That could be dangerous as well. All right, so I'm gonna give you a detail on what I'm talking about and how you can learn from this. That's why I'm doing this video. That's why I think it's very important for you to stay all the way through all of this and listen up. All right, the first thing you're gonna need is a plan. Have a plan on where you will find your family members and where to go if nothing works. You need to see who will pick up your kids from school, and if they are young, about 3, 4, 5 years old, and get them to understand now what they could be facing in the future, so they will be able to cope with it better. And the planning can also go into details such as how far away do you live from when you work? Because where I used to work, I used to live 40 miles. I used to work 40 miles away. because, you know, I live in a remote area and I would have to go into the city for me to be able to work, you know, to get, I used to work at a warehouse. So I would have to travel 40 miles every day there and back. So 80 miles each day to go to work. Right? That's the only downside of living so remote. But the point is that if you're 40 miles away, like I would have been, okay, that means I would have to walk those 40 miles back home. So if your spouse also works within your area, you're going to have a meeting point on where you can find each other if something like that happens, so you can walk together and you can take care of each other that way, you know, and try to make it home as fast as you can because your kids are in school. That's why it's important for you to know or have someone designated that's going to be able to go pick up your kids from school. The teacher's going to try to keep their kids safe as possible for as long as they can, but they're going to get edgy too. They're going to get nervous and they're going to want to go home, and they're going to want to know where their kids are. Because you can have a kindergarten teacher that's taking care of your kid, but they have a kid in middle school or even in high school, and, you know, and they don't have a plan, so they just panic and they just leave your kid behind, right? And they go try to find their own kids. And we can really blame them for that. I mean, that's human nature. That's why it's important for everyone to have a plan and think of those things right now while we still can. So that's why you have to have someone to be able to pick up your kids, you know. Pray to God that your home if something like that was to ever happen, so you don't have to travel as far and it won't be as stressful. But we know that there's 330 million Americans. You know, you got to think how many hours I'm outside my home compared to when I'm home. I used to work, I kid you not, about 14 to 20 hours every day. All right. I know a lot of people is not going to believe me, but I have people that I work with, my coworkers, that who actually listen to this podcast, they can tell you that, yes, it's true. We used to work 14 and 20 hours shifts every single day, 6 days a week. All right. So I would spend all that time outside of my house compared to just going home, sleeping, waking up, and doing it all over again. That was my routine for about 4 years. So if an EMP would have gone off in the 4-year span, then I would definitely be home and very tired. Right? So those are the things you have to consider when you're making your plan. All right, moving on to the next thing. Food. For this scenario, for an EMP, you have to have at least, at the very minimum, like you didn't prepare enough, minimum, right? At least 2 years. The reason I say that is because if there's no war, or if we do win a war, let's say that they did the EMP, they tried to invade, but our government or our military was able to repel it and was able to get people off, or, you know, even the citizens in Texas and all the border states on both sides were able to fend off any type of attack, and we were out of threat, you know, let's just put it that way. It would take about 18 months for a major city to get power. Now, if you live in the country or in the remote area, like I mentioned a minute ago, it's going to take at least 5 years for you to get that power back to you. You know, those are the estimations. So that's why you have to have at the very least 2 years worth of food. All right. And your bulk allocation has to be in an area where you have constant water coming through, because that's going to be another downfall if you're not ready. But before I move on to the water, I want to go ahead and say that you need at the very least 2 years. And that can be a combination of canned goods, storable food, food that you put in Mylar bags yourself, a garden, and canning the excess fruits and vegetables. All right. You can also have dried fruit. You can have farm animals, all right, but you got to make sure that you can feed them what you have in your garden. Another thing you have to be sure you know how to do is to butcher them, because if you don't butcher it right, then you can actually spoil that meat. You can make it to where it's not edible. And also learn to look for diseases that your animals may have, And also that's going to be a great barter tool, because other people are going to want to have chickens. They're going to want to have rabbits in order for them to be able to multiply them and be able to eat off of that and live off of it. All right, so the next thing I said, it was water. You're going to have a family gravity-fed water filter, personal water filter, natural water filter, which, you know, would be the sand, the charcoal, or, you know, the natural way. Water purification tablets, water purification using bleach, water bottles, rain catchment system, a pond, a creek, a river, a lake, or even an ocean. You know, like I said, depending on where you live, if you're going to get your bug out location, make sure that it has a natural water coming through it in a regular raining season. Because I'm telling you, if the only reason you move is because you don't have any water, that's going to be the number one reason there's going to be migration within the United States. Because when you drink your last drop of water or liquid, whatever it is, whether it's juice, you know, water, palm water, whatever, when you drink the last drop, you're going to have to move, because you're going to be 3 days away from dying. That's why you have to have those personal water filters. And if you're going to get a bug allocation, make sure it has a stream running through it 365 and it never gets dry. You know, it's not a seasonal stream. Make sure you take care of that if you look for a bug allocation. Medicine. You have to have training on first aid and have a stockpile of medical supplies such as stitching kits, band-aids, gauze, you know, antibiotic ointment, etc. Have a defibrillator and a gunshot wound care kit, and learn natural medicine. I want to go ahead and specify again that natural medicine should never, or at least in my opinion, it should never take over modern medicine. And the reason I say that is because my own family members have been saved because of modern medicine, right? Alternative medicine, in my opinion, should only be used when regular people, modern medicine cannot be found. You know, there's no longer doctors at the hospital because, you know, everyone's home, or there's an EMP, there's no power, or whatever. You know, you make up the excuse, there's no one. That's the only reason why you should use natural medicine and be able to learn how to take care of illnesses and gunshot wounds at home. You know, be able to do a small surgery and know that you have to have a sanitized, sterile place to be able to do those things. You know, learn all of that. That's the most important thing for you to learn. If you learn anything, that should be top priority. If you have a tight budget, you should put medical training at the very top. Okay. Tactical training. Have more common types of ammo than different types of guns. Have plenty of maintenance materials for guns. Have more than 30 hours of accuracy training with every weapon you own. Learn to clear a room or a building. Learn to rescue a hostage. Learn to infiltrate groups. Learn intelligence gathering. Learn Morse code. Learn military alphabet and learn the military time. Learn to invade an enemy in the dark and during the day. Have night vision goggles and learn to leave secret messages. All right, so all of that is very important, because having the tactical training is gonna be one of the main factors that's gonna help you survive. Because if you learn to get intelligence, then you're gonna be able to know when danger's coming your way. If you're able to evade people during the day or night, whatever it is, you're gonna have the upper hand. I say you need to have more ammo than actual different types of guns, is because your whole group has to have the same gun. You know, follow the same way of thinking that the government, or at least the military, does. Everyone has the same weapon. Everybody has the same caliber. Everyone has the same thing, because if it's cheaper, you know, but if your ally has that ammo and you ran out of it, they can just give you a mag and you can use it in the same weapon and continue fighting, you know. So that's going to be it. You want to have a big amount of that because there's going to be people who's going to want to barter. That's going to be one of the main things that people are going to want to barter, because, you know, even though they did stockpile, they were in several firefights and they're running low, or they're just completed right now, whatever the case may be. Ammo is going to be #1 currency in those type of situations. All right. Moving on to the next thing, alliances. You have to have at least 12 people in your alliance, preferably people with skills such as medical, tactical, farming, communications, or a person with jack of all trades, etc. All right, you want to have efficient. You want to have a group of efficient people, or as efficient as possible. You know, so everybody can take care of different things, and you don't feel like you have to do everything yourself. If there's people who lack certain things, I believe that everyone should get the same type of training. That's why you have time now. You know, your entire group. If it's 12 of you, 12 of you go take the same medical class. If it's 12 of you, go take the same tactical class. So 12 of you go take the communications class. You know, that way everybody has the same type of training, the same knowledge, so everyone can be efficient for the entire group. The next thing I have is communications. Have walkie-talkie, learn to operate a ham radio, and learn to make a makeshift ham radio. The reason I say this is because there's going to be a very important tool for your intelligence gathering and for other things, because walkie-talkies is going to be for your perimeter. Ham radio is going to be able for you to get intelligence, because if there's an EMP and you're in contact with somebody outside of the United States that's getting the reporting they're getting, and they say that, yeah, it should be getting invaded, you know, through Texas by China, and through the north by Russia, and on the East Coast by Iran, and on the West Coast by North Korea. You know, there's a type of intelligence that you can get. So that's why it's important for you to have a ham radio or makeshift a ham radio, and, you know, everything that goes with it. How to have a one-time code that is going to help you not get intercepted if you know, communicating back and forth. All right, so there's a lot of things you can learn from ham radio. Gear, you have all the gear you're going to need, such as axe, knives, flashlights, power banks, bug-out bags, nuclear disaster gear, EMP gear, which of course is what we sell at the Amendment Survival Store. So check it out. You know, you also want to have shovels, pickaxe, everything you're gonna need for your gardening, everything, all the tools, all the gear that you're gonna need, you have to make sure it's already in place. The next thing is wilderness survival training. Learn to survive in the wild without any gear whatsoever. Learn to make primitive tools. Learn to travel by the stars. Learn to hunt and trap. Learn topography, and if I haven't said that right, and learn to track, because it's gonna be important for you for your survival. Transportation. You're going to need different ways to travel that do not require having a car. For example, you can have a bike, you can have a motor scooter that doesn't have computer chips in it, or you can just have an extra computer in your for your car that you can store in an EMP bag. That way that even if it knocks down or it knocks out your car, that computer in your car, what you could do is that you can just swap it out, put it in, and it should work. Right? As far as the research that I've done, you can see that just switching out the computer on the car that has been hit with an EMP will start just fine, and it will run just fine. You may not have a radio, but, you know, at least it's gonna take you from point A to point B. And last but not least, you need to have a bunker. Get a bunker for you and your group, but ideally you want to separate families. And the reason I say that is because, you know, there can be misunderstandings, you know, with husband and wives or whatever, and you just want to have families separated. You don't want temptation to, you know, have its ugly head there and everything like that. So, I mean, if y'all have the money as a group to be able to do that, that would be recommended. All right, so the reason I went into such a big or such a in-depth detail is so you can get everything ready as fast as you can, or as much as you can afford, really, because of course all of this all put together is going to be very expensive. So you need to see in your individual need which one is going to take priority. And I would suggest that food, water is going to be top priority, then medical training, tactical, and then the rest you can sort it out. Okay, so remember, you have to have a healthy balance of all of those things, because if you only focus on one thing and you lack on the others, that's going to be your downfall, right? You always heard you have always heard the expression that you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if you lack on any of those, that's where you could fall. All right. So I hope this information was really beneficial to you, that it wasn't boring. I hope it wasn't boring. And I hope it was something that you can take and it'll help you plan for different things in the future. All right. So I hope that it did that. So again, I want to remind you about my book, Preppers Secrete Cache. You can go to www.prepperssecretcache.com, or you can just click the link below. And the book's absolutely free. All we need your help is with shipping. All right. And also the MemoSurvivalStore.com. So again, please share this information with your friends and family. Please subscribe to the channel, like the channel, and leave us a comment. I would appreciate it. I enjoy answering all the comments that people leave me there. All right. But anyways, I want to go ahead and sign off, and I want to remind you that my name is Jose Prado, and remember, always ready.
The Man-Made Survival Show.